The $3,200 Saint Laurent tote hit Amara Cole square in the ribs before she even saw it coming. She stumbled backward into the glass display outside the Chanel boutique, winter campaign perfumes arranged like crystal soldiers, then crashed down hard on the icy marble floor. The impact stole her breath. The world tilted. Something tore at her lip. Warm blood. Copper and shame. For a moment, the entire Gangnam luxury mall went silent. Even the soft instrumental carols piping through the ceiling speakers seemed to hesitate, like the building itself was holding its breath. Amara's fingers curled around the handles of the shopping bags she'd been carrying, understated, practical brands, nothing flashy, like they were the only proof she still belonged upright in this world. Her palms were sweating so badly the rope handles slid against her skin. She looked up. And there he was. Kang Min-jun. Her boss. The man who owned the city in ways nobody ever said out loud. He stood 10 feet away, still in his charcoal three-piece suit, still impossibly composed, except his eyes weren't composed at all. They were dark. Flat. Locked on her body where she lay on the floor, on the small smear of blood at the corner of her mouth, on the way her left sleeve had ridden up and revealed. Bruises. Not fresh ones. Old ones layered over newer ones. Purple blooming into yellow, like someone had been painting pain into her skin for weeks. And across from her, close enough that she could smell him, stood the man who'd thrown the bag. Not a stranger. Not a random bully. The boyfriend she'd been hiding from everyone. Marcus Wellington. Tall. American. Pretty in the way men were pretty when they learned early that smiles could open doors. He wore a camel coat that didn't fit quite right, like it was purchased for appearances instead of warmth. His jaw clenched with a familiar, impatient contempt as he stared down at Amara like she was an inconvenience he'd stepped in. "Get up," he hissed, just loud enough for her to hear. "Stop embarrassing me." Amara's ears rang. Not from the impact, though her ribs were screaming, but from the panic that hit right after. Because she'd been careful. So careful. Long sleeves even in heated buildings. Turtlenecks. High collars. Concealer on her jawline. Laughing off the flinches. Claiming she was clumsy. Claiming she bumped into a cabinet. Claiming she fell on the subway. And at work, at Kong Global, she'd mastered the art of invisibility. She was just the black secretary with the quiet voice and perfect schedules. The one who brought coffee exactly the way Min-jun liked it, 2 sugars, no cream, and kept her eyes down when executives barked her name like she was a tool. She could survive if she stayed unnoticed. Except, her bruises were noticed now. By the one man in Seoul she never wanted noticing her like this. Amara forced herself onto an elbow, pain tearing through her side. The marble was freezing through the thin fabric of her skirt. She tasted blood again, sharper this time, and tried to swallow it like it was nothing. Her eyes flicked to Min-jun. He wasn't looking at Marcus. He wasn't looking at the tote bag. He was looking at her sleeve. And the bruises she'd failed to hide. His voice came out low, quiet enough that the surrounding crowd had to lean in, and still sharp enough that Amara felt it in her bones. "Secretary Cole." The way he said her name wasn't a question. It was a summon. Amara's throat tightened. "Sir." Marcus laughed, one short burst of sound, and the cruelty of it snapped the silence. "Oh my God," he said, rolling his eyes like the entire scene was a boring inconvenience. "Don't do that. Don't start acting like you're some victim. She's dramatic, mister, whoever you are." He looked Min-jun up and down, like he was appraising a watch he might buy. Then Marcus made a mistake. He reached down and grabbed Amara by the upper arm. Right over the bruise. Amara's body jerked. A sharp, involuntary sound escaped her half-gasp, half-whimper, and she hated herself for it immediately. Hated the weakness. Hated the way her eyes stung with tears she couldn't afford in public. But the moment Marcus's fingers tightened, Min-jun moved. Not fast like a man rushing. Fast like something that had been restrained for a long time and finally found a reason to stop pretending. 1 second, Min-jun was 10 feet away. The next, he was right there. His hand clamped around Marcus's wrist. Not a shove. Not a warning. A grip that stopped blood flow. Marcus's face changed, surprise flashing into anger. What the hell? Let go of me. Min-jun didn't. His gaze stayed on Amara. And when he spoke, it wasn't to Marcus. It was to her. Lift your sleeve, he said softly. Amara froze. That wasn't a request. It wasn't even a command. It was inevitability. Her hand trembled as she pulled the fabric up another inch. More bruises bloomed under the mall's bright lights. Finger-shaped. Some darker than others. One had a faint cut across it, as if she'd been scratched while trying to get away. A sound left Min-jun's throat barely audible, almost not human. Then, finally, his eyes shifted to Marcus. The temperature in the space seemed to drop. The scent of Marcus's expensive cologne, something citrus and arrogant, suddenly mixed with something else in the air. Metal. Like coins. Like a gun that had been cleaned too recently. Min-jun spoke in perfect English, calm enough to be polite. Remove your hand, he said. Marcus scoffed, trying to tug free. Man, I don't know who you think you are. Min-jun tightened his grip. Marcus's knees buckled. Just a fraction. But enough. Amara saw it, saw the microsecond of fear leak through Marcus's expression before he could lock it back up. Min-jun leaned in, voice still quiet. I asked you politely, he said. That was your only gift. Marcus swallowed hard. His eyes darted around, searching for support from the crowd, for mall security, for anyone who would treat this like an ordinary altercation. But security hadn't moved. They were standing very still, watching Min-jun the way men watched a storm they knew by name. Amara's heart hammered. Because she understood something in that moment that she'd never let herself fully accept before. Kang Min-jun wasn't just rich. He wasn't just powerful. He was the kind of man people obeyed without needing to understand why. Marcus tried again, voice rising. She's my girlfriend. This is none of your business. Min-jun's eyes flicked back to Amara like he was checking if she was still breathing. Then he said something so quiet Amara almost didn't hear it. Is that true? He asked her. Is he your boyfriend? Amara's lips parted. Lies were survival. Lies had kept her employed. Kept her from being fired for drama. Kept her from being pitted. But Min-jun's gaze pinned her in place, unforgiving, yes, but not cruel. Not like Marcus. Different. Amara swallowed. Her ribs screamed. Her arm throbbed where Marcus had grabbed her. And she whispered, barely audible. Yes. Marcus exhaled like he'd won. See? Now let's go, Amara. You've caused enough of a... Min-jun cut him off. What is your name? Min-jun asked. Marcus blinked. What? What, Min-jun repeated, is your name? The way he said it didn't sound like conversation. It sounded like a file being opened. Marcus lifted his chin. Marcus Wellington. Min-jun nodded once, as if confirming information he already had. Then he turned back to Amara. His hand, warm, steady, came to her cheek with impossible gentleness. His thumb brushed the blood at the corner of her mouth like it offended him. You've been hiding this, he said, not accusing. Stating fact. Amara tried to speak. Her voice came out broken. I didn't want. I know, he murmured. And that was the most terrifying part. He believed her. He didn't doubt her. He didn't treat her like she was hysterical or dramatic or too emotional. He looked at her like she was something that mattered. Min-jun's gaze dropped to her split lip again. His jaw flexed, one small movement, controlled, contained. Then he addressed Marcus without looking at him. You will release her, he said. Marcus laughed again, but it was thinner now. Or what? You're gonna call security. Min-jun finally looked at him. And smiled. It wasn't warmth. It wasn't humor. It was the expression of a man who'd just been handed permission. No, Min-jun said. I won't call security. Marcus's confidence rallied for half a second. Then, Min-jun continued, voice quiet as a prayer. I will call my men. The words landed like a switch flipping. Amara's stomach dropped. Because she'd heard whispers in the office. The kind of rumors people pretended not to believe, because believing them meant admitting the world wasn't safe. That Kang Min-jun wasn't just a corporate leader. That there was a Kang family, and it wasn't just boardrooms and stocks. That there were meetings held at midnight with men who didn't exist on paper. That if someone made a problem for Min-jun, they disappeared. Marcus hesitated. Your men, he repeated, trying to sound amused. Min-jun's gaze sharpened. Yes. Amara's phone buzzed in her purse, still clutched against her side on the floor. One vibration. Then another. And then a third. Min-jun didn't move to answer it. He didn't have to. A man in a black suit appeared at the edge of the crowd like he'd materialized from shadow. He pressed a hand to his ear, listening, eyes locked on Min-jun, waiting. Waiting for an order. Amara's mouth went dry. Marcus noticed him too. His smile faltered. Min-jun crouched so he was eye level with Amara. His voice softened. Amara, he said, using her first name for the first time since she'd been hired. Look at me. She did. His eyes were dark, but there was something underneath the darkness that felt older than anger. Possession, maybe. Not of her body. Not of her choices. Of the concept of her safety. Like once he'd seen the truth, he couldn't unsee it, and now it belonged to him to fix. You're coming with me, he said. Amara's panic spiked. Sir, I have work, You're coming, he repeated, calm as stone. Her eyes flicked to Marcus, still standing there, pretending he wasn't losing control, pretending he wasn't suddenly aware he was in the wrong country to be reckless. Amara whispered, He'll be angry. Min-jun's expression didn't change. Let him, he said. Then, so quietly it felt like a secret, he added. He won't touch you again. Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. But believing people was how she'd ended up with Bruises. Min-jun rose smoothly to his full height and finally faced Marcus directly. Marcus forced a laugh. This is insane. You can't just, she's with me. Min-jun didn't argue. He didn't threaten loudly. He didn't perform for the crowd. He simply said, release her. Marcus's fingers flexed like he was considering grabbing Amara again just to prove he could. But the man in the black suit had been joined by another. And another. 3 men now, spaced out with surgical precision, eyes empty, hands hidden beneath their coats. The crowd began to back away instinctively. Min-jun's voice dropped, smooth as glass. Mr. Wellington, he said, you have misunderstood something. Marcus swallowed. Min-jun continued, you think this is about what you did in public. Amara's heart thudded. Min-jun's gaze slid, for the briefest second, to Amara's bruises again. This, he said quietly, is about what you did in private. A beat. Then another. Min-jun spoke with the same tone he used in board meetings, measured, final, unchallengeable. In approximately 8 minutes, he said, you will realize you are no longer in control of anything. Marcus barked out, are you threatening me? Min-jun's smile returned, small and cold. No, he said. I'm informing you. Amara's breath caught. Because Min-jun wasn't bluffing. She could feel it like thunder in her chest, like the air itself knew that something irreversible had just been set in motion. And Marcus. Marcus still didn't understand who he was standing in front of. He didn't understand that the man he'd just provoked didn't do warnings. He did consequences. Amara tried to push herself upright again, but the pain made her hiss. Before she could hide it, Min-jun's hands were on her, one under her elbow, one steadying her waist, touch careful, controlled, respectful. He didn't lift her like an object. He helped her like she had agency. Her feet found the floor. Her knees shook. Min-jun leaned in, his mouth near her ear, voice so low it was only for her. I need you to tell me the truth, he murmured. Not later. Not when you feel brave. His breath was warm. His cologne, cedar and sandalwood, wrapped around her like a dangerous blanket. Now. Amara's eyes stung. She stared straight ahead, refusing to look at Marcus, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing fear on her face. And she whispered, he takes my money. He checks my phone. He hits me when he thinks I'm lying. Min-jun went still. For one terrifying moment, the air felt too thin to breathe. Then Min-jun said, with terrifying calm, thank you. As if she'd just handed him permission. As if the truth was all he needed. Marcus shifted, sensing something. Amara, what are you saying? Stop making me sound like. Min-jun turned his head slightly, eyes never leaving Marcus. You should leave, Min-jun said. Marcus scoffed, but his feet didn't move. Or what? Min-jun's expression didn't flicker. Or you won't get the chance, he said. Silence. Then, somewhere behind them, the faint sound of synchronized footsteps approaching. Not running. Not chaotic. Military precise. Amara's stomach flipped. Because whatever was coming wasn't mall security. It was Min-jun's world. And it was arriving. Right on time. Before we dive deeper, before we go back and unravel how Amara ended up trapped in a relationship that left bruises on her skin and fear in her bones, make sure you subscribe to Revenge Cafe, turn on notifications, and settle in. Because what happens next isn't just romance. It's justice. It's obsession. And it's the moment a woman who's spent months surviving in silence finally gets seen by the most dangerous man in Seoul. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back. To the first bruise Amara lied about. To the first time Marcus told her love was supposed to hurt. And to the day she walked into Kang Global thinking she'd found a safe place to disappear. Only to be chosen instead. And what Amara didn't know then was that Kang Min-jun had a rule. A private rule. A rule his enemies feared more than guns. If someone hurt what he claimed as his, he didn't just punish them. He erased them. And tonight, Marcus Wellington was about to learn exactly what that meant. Amara Cole didn't come to Seoul chasing romance. She came chasing quiet. The kind of quiet you can only understand after you've lived in a city where your name gets mispronounced every day, where you're the only black woman in the room so often it stops feeling like a coincidence and starts feeling like a warning. Back in Baltimore, she'd been the reliable one. The steady one. The one who did what needed to be done even when nobody clapped for it. She worked 2 jobs, weekday administrative work at a medical billing office and weekends at a cafe in Harbor East, because Marcus Wellington was finding himself. That was the phrase he used when rent was due. That was the phrase he used when his car note bounced. That was the phrase he used when she paid for his phone bill, his new shoes, his business idea, his confidence. Their apartment was small, the kind of place where the heat worked when it felt like it and the upstairs neighbors argued like it was a sport. But Amara made it a home anyway. She cooked when she was exhausted, folded laundry at midnight, picked up extra shifts without complaining. Because Marcus looked at her like she was the answer to every problem until she actually solved them. At first, he was charming. He called her baby, with that sweet softness that made you think you were safe. He kissed her forehead when she was tired. He posted her on social media like she was a trophy. But then the little things started. He'd joke about her being too sensitive. He'd tease her about being too independent. He'd compliment her by saying, "You're not like those other girls. You don't need much." And Amara, who'd spent her whole life surviving without asking anyone for anything, took that as love. That was her first mistake. Because Marcus didn't love her strength. He loved what her strength could provide him. And slowly, so slowly, she didn't even see it happening, Marcus began rearranging her life until it fit in his pocket. He started with her money. Not stealing it outright. Not at first. Just little loans. Little transfers. Little moments where he'd say, "Let me hold your card, babe. It's easier if I handle it." And when she hesitated, he'd laugh and say, "Why are you acting like I'm some kind of criminal? I'm your man." He started checking her phone. Not like an accusation. Like a habit. He'd glance over her shoulder while she texted. He'd ask who she was smiling at. He'd say, "Let me see," with a grin that looked playful until she said no. Then the grin would disappear. And the air in the room would change. And Amara would find herself saying, "Okay," even though every instinct in her body screamed that she shouldn't. Because she'd learned something very early in life. Sometimes keeping the peace is cheaper than being right. It wasn't love. But it felt like survival. And survival can be addictive. What Amara didn't realize was that Marcus wasn't just controlling her. He was studying her. Learning exactly how much pressure she could take before she broke. And he was getting ready to test the limit. It happened on a Tuesday. Amara remembered because she'd bought groceries on the way home, real groceries, not ramen and canned soup. She'd spent more than she should have because Marcus had been in one of his good moods that week, the kind that made her believe the old version of him might still exist. She unlocked the apartment door with a bag of oranges cutting into her fingers. And the place felt wrong. Quiet, but not peaceful. Empty, but not normal empty. Like the air had been vacuumed out. She stepped inside, and the first thing she noticed was the silence of the television. Marcus always had something playing. Sports. YouTube. A podcast about how to be a boss. The second thing she noticed was the smell. His cologne. Too strong. Like he'd sprayed it to cover something else. And then she saw it. The drawer where she kept the envelope with her savings, cash, she'd pulled out each paycheck, because part of her never fully trusted banks, after watching her aunt lose everything in 2008, was open. The envelope was gone. Amara stood there holding a grocery bag, oranges rolling against plastic, heart beating slow and thick like dread. She didn't move at first. Because she already knew. But the body always tries denial before it accepts disaster. She went into the bedroom. The closet was half empty. His shoes were gone. The designer belt he'd begged her to buy, as an investment in his image, gone. His duffel bag gone. Her laptop was on the bed. Open. Her bank app pulled up. Balance, $17.42. Amara didn't remember sitting down, but suddenly she was on the edge of the bed, grocery bag on the floor, oranges rolling like tiny suns toward the baseboard. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. Then her phone buzzed. A text. From Marcus. Don't blow my phone up. I'm doing what's best for me. You are dragging me down. I need space. And then, like the universe wanted to make sure she understood how alone she was, another message arrived a second later. Also, don't be dramatic. You'll be fine. You always figure it out. Amara stared at the screen until her eyes burned. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw the phone. She wanted to pretend she wasn't the kind of woman this happened to. But the truth was, she was. Because she'd loved him. Because she'd trusted him. Because she'd kept pouring into a man who treated her like a resource instead of a human being. And then, as if betrayal wasn't enough, her body betrayed her too. 2 weeks after Marcus disappeared, Amara found out she was pregnant. She sat on the bathroom floor with the test in her hand, shaking so hard she could hear her pulse in her ears. A baby. A life. A reason. She cried, not because she thought it would make Marcus come back, but because for the first time in her life, she wanted something that wasn't survival. She wanted a future. And she didn't have one. She tried to call Marcus. Straight to voicemail. She texted. No response. She emailed. Blocked. It wasn't just that he left. It was that he erased her like she was nothing. And because she was pregnant, because her body changed, because stress turned her sleep into broken pieces, she started missing shifts. Her boss at the billing office sympathized and then cut her hours. The cafe manager told her customers didn't like sad energy. Money dried up. Rent didn't care. The landlord posted the eviction notice like it was a flyer. Amara packed what she could into her car and told herself it was temporary. She told herself she'd find a cheaper place. She told herself she'd be okay. But at night, alone in the driver's seat with the windows fogging from her breath, the cold crawling into her bones, her hands pressed over her stomach as if she could shield the baby from her fear. She started to understand the truth. Love hadn't ruined her. Trust had. But the worst thing Marcus took wasn't money. It was time. And time was the one thing Amara couldn't get back. The first time Amara bled, she told herself it was nothing. Spotting happens, right? She Googled it on a phone with 12% battery while sitting in her car outside a 24-hour Walmart because it was one of the few places she could park without getting questioned. The second time she bled, she panicked. She drove to the ER. Not a nice one. The one with fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick even when they weren't. The one where the waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old coffee and hopelessness. She sat there for hours. When they finally called her back, a nurse looked at her chart, looked at her clothes, looked at her shaking hands, and her smile became professional in the way that meant don't ask for too much. They confirmed what her body already knew. She was miscarrying. Amara lay on a thin hospital bed with scratchy sheets, staring at ceiling tiles, listening to distant monitors beep like a soundtrack to her life falling apart. The pain came in waves. Cramping so hard she broke into sweat. A metallic taste in her mouth from biting her own lip to keep from making noise. Blood that felt endless. And she was alone. No Marcus. No family close enough to help without judgment. No friend she wanted to burden with this kind of grief. When it was over, the doctor spoke gently, but the words still landed like stones. "I'm sorry." Amara nodded like she understood what she was being told. But she didn't. Not really. Because how do you understand your future leaving your body in a bathroom you don't own? How do you understand that someone stole your money, your stability, your baby, and then walked away as if they'd simply changed their mind about dinner plans? That night, back in her car, Amara pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and whispered words she didn't even realize she'd been holding inside. "I hate you." Not to Marcus. To the universe. To God. To herself. And then, after the hate burned itself out, something else remained. Anger. Clean, sharp anger. The kind that doesn't destroy you. The kind that builds you. Amara wiped her face, sat up, and made a decision so quiet it almost didn't feel real. She was done begging life to be kind. She was going to take what she needed. Legally. Strategically. Relentlessly. 2 months later, she applied for an international administrative role in Seoul. She didn't tell anyone the full truth. She said she wanted a fresh start. She said she loved Korean culture. She said she was seeking growth opportunities. The real truth was simpler. She wanted distance so large it could swallow her past. And when the acceptance email came through, Kang Global, executive secretary placement, relocation assistance included, Amara read it 3 times to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. Then she cried. Not soft tears. Ugly ones. Because for the first time since Marcus left, she could see a door. And she was going to walk through it. Amara thought Seoul would be a clean slate. She didn't know it was a battlefield. And she definitely didn't know she was about to work for a man whose kindness came with teeth. Seoul was colder than she expected. Not just the weather, the winter wind cut through her coat like it was paper, but the way people moved. Efficient. Unbothered. Eyes forward. Amara liked that. It meant nobody asked questions. Kang Global's headquarters in Gangnam looked like money in architecture form, steel, glass, minimalist arrogance. The lobbies smelled faintly like white tea and expensive flowers. The marble floors were so polished she could see her reflection and didn't recognize the woman staring back. She wore a simple black blazer, hair pulled back clean, minimal makeup. Practical. Safe. Invisible. That was the plan. Her first week, she learned the rules without anyone saying them out loud. Rule 1. Don't speak unless spoken to in meetings. Rule 2. Don't make mistakes, because mistakes didn't get corrected here, they got remembered. Rule 3. Kang Min-jun was not approached. He was encountered. Like weather. Like fate. She saw him from a distance at first. In glass-walled conference rooms with executives standing when he entered. In elevators where conversations died the moment the doors opened. In the way the entire building seemed to adjust around his presence, like the air learned to behave when he was near. He was tall, broad-shouldered, always in suits cut so perfectly they looked like they were stitched directly onto his body. His hair was black, neat, never out of place. His face was too controlled to read easily, handsome in the way that didn't invite you closer, handsome like a warning. And his eyes. His eyes were the kind that made people lie without realizing they were lying. Amara avoided them. Then came the night of the chairman's charity gala. Kang Global hosted it at a hotel overlooking the Han River, the kind of place where the chandeliers looked like frozen waterfalls and every woman smelled like perfume that cost a month's rent. Amara wasn't supposed to be seen. She was support staff. Clipboard. Earpiece. Schedules. But halfway through the night, an older executive cornered her near the service hallway. He spoke English with the casual arrogance of a man used to being obeyed. You're Cole, correct? The foreign secretary. Amara smiled politely. Yes, sir. His gaze slid over her in a way that made her skin crawl. You're very unique. Amara's smile tightened. Thank you. He stepped closer. Have you considered networking? I could introduce you to the right people. Amara took a careful step back. I'm working. His smile didn't move. So am I. Fear flashed through her, sharp and familiar. Not because the man was powerful. Because she recognized the energy. The entitlement. The assumption that she was available because she was alone. She opened her mouth to deflect. And then a voice cut through the air, low and calm. Step away from her. The executive froze like someone had turned off his power. Amara turned. Kang Min-jun stood a few feet away, a champagne flute in one hand, his expression neutral. But his eyes weren't neutral. They were focused. On the executive. The man stammered. Chairman Kang, I said, Min-jun repeated softly, step away from her. The executive moved back immediately, sweating now. Min-jun didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He looked at Amara then, really looked at her. Not at her skin. Not at her foreignness. At her face. At her posture. At the way her hands were clenched so tightly around her clipboard her knuckles had gone pale. And something in his gaze sharpened, like he'd noticed a detail nobody else cared to see. Are you okay? He asked. Amara swallowed. Yes, sir. He held her eyes. 1 beat. 2. Then he said, you're lying. Amara's breath caught. The words weren't cruel. They were simply accurate. She forced her voice steady. I'm fine. Min-jun's gaze dipped to her wrist. A faint bruise. Barely visible under the cuff of her blazer. Small enough that any polite person would ignore it. He didn't. His voice remained calm. Who did that? Amara felt the room tilt. No one had asked her that in months. Not like it mattered. Not like the answer would change anything. Her instinct screamed, lie. Smile. Survive. So she did. I bumped into a door, she said. Min-jun stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, doors don't leave fingerprints. Amara's blood went cold. Because he wasn't just observing. He was seeing. And being seen felt like danger. It felt like exposure. It felt like the first crack in the wall she'd built to stay alive. Min-jun's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and something in his expression shifted, subtle, controlled. He answered in Korean, voice low, and Amara caught only fragments. Enough to know it wasn't corporate. It was something darker. When he ended the call, he looked back at her. You have my permission, he said, to leave early tonight. Amara blinked. Sir, That's not a suggestion. His gaze softened, just slightly. Go home. Amara nodded, not trusting her voice. As she turned to leave, Min-jun spoke again. And Secretary Cole? She paused. Yes, sir. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. If anyone makes you feel unsafe in this building. A pause. Tell me. Amara should have felt relieved. Instead, fear curled in her stomach. Because Marcus had always promised protection too. Right before he punished her for needing it. So Amara whispered, okay, and walked away. Not knowing that Kang Min-jun wasn't offering charity. He was making a decision. And once he decided something belonged under his protection, he didn't let it go. And then Amara met him, Kang Min-jun, the man who would change everything. But she had no idea who he really was. No idea about the organization that answered to him, the enemies who watched him, or the violence he kept leashed behind immaculate suits. She thought Kang Global was the safest place she'd ever worked. She was wrong. Because the moment Min-jun noticed her bruises, he started watching her life like it was a threat assessment. And the first name he investigated was Marcus Wellington. By Monday morning, Amara had returned to the only place she trusted more than her own apartment, routine. Kang Global's executive floor was temperature-controlled perfection, air always slightly cool, floors always spotless, people always careful. The kind of environment where emotions felt like a stain you could be fired for. Amara moved through it like she belonged, because she had learned how to belong anywhere by becoming useful. She arrived at 6:10 a.m. every day. Not because anyone asked her to. Because it gave her time to breathe before the building filled with power. She set Kang Min-jun's schedule. Printed the briefing packets. Checked the security logs she wasn't technically allowed to access, but somehow always ended up on her desk anyway. She placed his coffee on the right side of his desk, always right because she'd noticed the one time she put it left, he didn't touch it for 10 minutes. Small details were a form of control. Amara understood control. She understood the difference between control that protected you and control that owned you. Min-jun arrived at 7 a.m. sharp. The elevator doors would open and the entire floor would subtly reset itself, back straighter, voices lower, body language careful, like everyone was standing too close to a cliff. He never greeted anyone. Not because he was rude. Because men like Kang Min-jun didn't spend their lives proving they were in charge. The world already agreed. Yet every morning, every single morning, his gaze would flick to Amara first. Not lingering in a way that felt like entitlement. Checking. Assessing. Like she was a situation he was tracking. Amara told herself she was imagining it. Because imagining it meant she still had control over how it made her feel. But then, one morning, she reached for a file on the top shelf of the supply cabinet and her sleeve pulled back. A bruise bloomed into view. Her body tensed automatically, breath-catching. She didn't even realize she'd frozen until she felt presence behind her. Not close, but close enough. Min-jun didn't speak. He simply lifted his hand, gloved and calm, not leather, and gently tugged her sleeve down. A small gesture. A respectful one. No grabbing. No yanking. Just covering her. Amara turned, startled. His eyes met hers. Unreadable, dark, steady. He said quietly, "Wear long sleeves tomorrow." It should have felt like an order. But it didn't. It felt like a shield. Amara swallowed. "Yes, sir." Min-jun stepped back, giving her space like he understood she needed it, then walked away without another word. But as he moved, Amara caught the faint scent of him, cedar, sandalwood, something expensive that didn't try too hard. And her body did the most inconvenient thing possible. It exhaled. Like it had been holding its breath around men for too long. What Amara didn't know was that Min-jun had already ordered a private background report. Not on her. On the bruise. On the shape of it. On the pressure pattern that told a trained eye exactly how it had been made. And once Min-jun saw the photos, he didn't sleep that night. Min-jun never flirted. He never made inappropriate comments. He never brushed against her in hallways with that accidental intimacy some men used like a weapon. But his presence had weight. It altered the air. And he began to appear in places Amara didn't expect. The break room at 6:30 a.m., when no executives were there, just Min-jun, sleeves rolled up once, making tea. Amara walked in and stopped short, embarrassed to intrude. He didn't look up immediately. "You're early." "I'm always early," she said before she could stop herself. His gaze flicked to her. A rare softness touched his mouth. "I noticed." The kettle clicked off. Steam curled through the cool air. Min-jun poured the tea with precise movements, then, without asking, set a second cup on the counter. Amara stared at it like it might explode. "No," she said quickly. "Sir, It's tea," he replied. "Not a contract." Something in his tone was almost dry. Not quite humor, but close enough to make her chest feel tight. Amara took the cup cautiously. The warmth seeped into her palms. It shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. Because Marcus never gave her warmth unless he wanted something back. And Min-jun gave it like it cost him nothing. Still, Amara didn't drink until Min-jun turned away. Survival habits didn't disappear just because your surroundings got expensive. 2 weeks after the gala, Min-jun called her into his office. Not the main executive office, everyone knew that one. This was the inner office. The one behind a locked door. The one only his closest people entered. Amara's heartbeat sped up, but she kept her face neutral. She carried her tablet, her notes, her professional armor. Inside, the office was quiet in a way that felt intentional. The desk wasn't cluttered with paper. It was cluttered with control, encrypted phones, security screens mounted discreetly in the wall, a thin folder labeled in Korean that Amara could only partly read. Min-jun gestured to a chair across from him. "Sit." Amara sat. Min-jun didn't. He moved to the window instead, looking down at Seoul like it belonged to him and it didn't offend him to share the view. Then he spoke without turning around. "Do you have a boyfriend?" Amara's stomach dropped. Her first instinct was to lie. Lie, smile, survive. But she remembered his voice at the gala, "You're lying." And the way his eyes didn't judge her for it, only refused it. Amara's fingers tightened around the tablet. "No." Min-jun turned his head slightly. "Are you sure?" Amara's throat went dry. In her mind, she saw Marcus's face, heard his voice, felt the familiar dread. "Don't embarrass me. Don't make me look bad. Don't make me angry." She forced her voice steady. "I'm not seeing anyone." Min-jun walked back to the desk with unhurried steps. Sat down. Opened the thin folder. He slid a single paper across the desk toward her. A photograph. Grainy. Surveillance style. Amara on the sidewalk outside her apartment building. Marcus's hand on her arm. Too tight. Her face turned slightly away, as if bracing. Amara's breath caught. Min-jun's voice remained calm. "His name is Marcus Wellington." Amara's head snapped up. "How?" "You're not invisible," Min-jun said simply. Her heart pounded hard enough to hurt. "Sir, I can explain." "I'm not asking you to explain," he cut in. His tone softened, just a fraction. "I'm asking you to tell me the truth." Amara stared at the photo. Shame rose like bile. Because she had tried so hard to be perfect here. To be unproblematic. To not be the foreign woman with baggage. She whispered, he's not my boyfriend anymore." Min-jun's eyes didn't leave her face. "Is he dangerous?" Amara's lips parted. Silence expanded. Because naming abuse felt like summoning it. If she said it out loud, it became real in a way she couldn't undo. And Amara had learned to survive by controlling what was real. Min-jun waited. No pressure. No impatience. Just time. Amara exhaled. "Yes." Min-jun's gaze sharpened, not with anger at her. With anger for her. "Has he hit you?" Amara's chest tightened so hard she almost couldn't breathe. Her voice came out barely audible. "Yes." Min-jun's jaw flexed. Then, quietly, he asked, "Do you want help?" Amara flinched at the words. Help always came with cost. Help always demanded payment. Help always turned into ownership. She lifted her chin, forcing dignity into her voice. "I can handle it." Min-jun's eyes held hers. "No." A simple word. A refusal. But not of her. Of the situation. "You've been handling it," he said, voice still controlled, "and you're still bruised." Amara swallowed hard, fighting tears. Min-jun continued, lower now. "That means it's not something you can handle alone." The office was so quiet she could hear the faint hum of the security monitors. Amara's fingers trembled. She hid it by placing the tablet neatly on her lap. "If I accept help," she whispered, "he'll get worse." Min-jun leaned forward slightly, like he was bringing the world closer with him. "He will not," he said. "Not a promise. A decision." That afternoon, Min-jun's assistant, an older Korean man named Director Han with eyes like stone, handed Amara a new phone. Encrypted. No apps except what she needed. A new keycard. A new address. Amara stared at it, throat tight. "What is this?" Director Han's voice was respectful, emotionless. "Chairman Kang's instructions. You will relocate tonight." Amara's pulse spiked. "Relocate?" "I didn't agree to." Min-jun appeared behind Director Han like he'd been there the whole time. Amara's breath caught. He looked calm. But calm on him felt dangerous, like a blade that hadn't moved yet. "I'm not moving," she said quickly, before fear could shut her mouth. "Sir, I appreciate whatever this is, but you can't just." Min-jun's gaze held hers. Then he said something that startled her. "You're right." Amara blinked. He continued, "I can't just decide for you." Director Han's expression didn't change, but Amara felt the subtle shift in the air, the organization adjusting to a new rule. Min-jun stepped closer, still leaving space. "So I'm asking." Amara's voice trembled. "Why?" Min-jun's eyes didn't soften. They deepened. "Because if he comes to your apartment tonight," Min-jun said, "and you are there." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Amara could imagine it too clearly. Marcus's rage, the accusations, the punishment for disobedience. Amara's stomach twisted. Min-jun added, quieter, and, because if he hurts you again, I will kill him. Amara froze. Her blood ran cold. Not because she didn't believe he could. Because she believed him completely. Don't say that, she whispered. Min-jun's voice was steady. I'm telling you the truth. Amara's mouth went dry. That's not protection. That's what I am, Min-jun interrupted. Then he exhaled, a rare sign of emotion slipping through the cracks. But you deserve protection anyway. Amara's eyes stung. She didn't want this. She didn't want to crave the safety in his certainty. Because craving it meant she could become dependent. And dependence was how Marcus had trapped her. So she forced herself to ask the only question that mattered. If I come with you, she said, voice shaking, do I still get to leave if I want to? Min-jun's gaze sharpened, like the question hit a wound. A pause. Then he said yes. Amara swallowed. No questions asked. Min-jun's jaw flexed again. Then, quietly, like it cost him something, he said yes. The words landed heavy. A powerful man agreeing to release control. A dangerous man accepting a boundary. Amara's chest loosened by half an inch. Not trust. Not yet. But possibility. Fine, she whispered. Tonight. Min-jun nodded once. Director Han stepped forward, already moving. A car will be waiting at 7 p.m. Amara's stomach flipped. Where am I going? Min-jun's voice went low. My penthouse. Amara's eyes widened despite herself. Sir. It has security, he said simply. It has privacy. It has distance from him. Then, softer, and it has me. Amara didn't know what to do with that. Because it sounded too close to something she couldn't afford to believe in. What Amara didn't know was that while she packed a single suitcase of practical clothes, Min-jun's men were already watching Marcus. Not to scare him. Not yet. To measure him. To learn his patterns. To find the moment when he was most vulnerable. At 6:58 p.m., Amara stepped out of the Kang Global lobby into the winter air. The cold bit her cheeks immediately. A black sedan waited at the curb. Not a company car. Something heavier. The windows were tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. Director Han opened the back door. Amara hesitated, heart racing. Then she slid in. The leather seat was warm. The scent inside was faint, clean, expensive, masculine. Like the car had been detailed with obsession. She told herself that meant nothing. The city blurred past. Gangnam's neon softened into quieter streets. Amara watched Seoul through the tinted glass and tried not to feel like she was being swallowed by someone else's life. When the car finally stopped, the building was so sleek it looked unreal. Private entrance, guarded gate, no visible signage. Inside, the elevator required a biometric scan. Director Han didn't speak until they reached the top. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. Amara stepped out and stopped. The space was massive, minimalist luxury, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the Han River like a painting, soft indirect lighting that made everything look warm even though the city outside was cold. A grand piano sat untouched in one corner like a threat of elegance. The air smelled like cedar and something faintly floral, expensive candles. Amara's throat tightened. The living room alone was bigger than her Baltimore apartment. And that's when she saw Min-jun. He stood by the windows, jacket off, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up once, like the day had finally ended and he'd allowed himself to become slightly human. He turned as she entered. His gaze swept over her one suitcase, stiff posture, guarded eyes. He didn't smile. But his shoulders loosened a fraction, like seeing her here corrected something in him. You're safe here, he said. Amara's voice was thin. I don't feel safe anywhere. Min-jun studied her for a moment. Then he nodded, as if accepting that as truth instead of resisting it. You will, he said. He gestured toward a hallway. Your room is there. Lock from the inside. Nobody enters without your permission. Amara blinked. You're not putting me in your room. The words came out before she could stop them. Min-jun's gaze sharpened, not offended. Amused almost. No, he said. I'm not. Amara's cheeks warmed with embarrassment. Min-jun continued, calm, you are my employee. You're a guest in my home. And you're a woman who has been violated. His voice went lower, dangerous in its restraint. I won't be another man who takes from you. Amara's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. She wanted to lean into the warmth of this place, the silence, the security. But her body remembered Marcus too well. So she nodded stiffly. Thank you. Min-jun's eyes held hers. Then he said something that made her stomach drop. Your boyfriend won't be able to reach you tonight. Amara froze. What did you do? Min-jun didn't answer directly. He walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and set it on the counter far enough away that she'd have to choose to approach it. Choice. Always choice. Then he said, I made sure he's occupied. Amara's throat went dry. Occupied how? Min-jun's eyes flicked to her bruises again. His voice was quiet. Non-lethally, he said. Which was not reassurance. It was proof he'd considered lethality and decided she didn't need to carry that. Amara's hands trembled. She whispered, you can't just make people disappear. Min-jun's gaze didn't flinch. I can, he said simply. Then softer, but I won't do anything you can't live with. Amara stared at him. Because it was the first time a powerful man had acknowledged the cost of his protection on her soul. Not his reputation. Not his control. Her conscience. Her future. Her ability to sleep at night. And that scared her more than violence. Because it felt like intimacy. Later that night, Amara stood in the bathroom attached to her guest room, staring at herself in the mirror. Under the soft lighting, the bruises looked worse. Her cheekbone had faint discoloration. Her upper arm was mottled. A purple shadow curved along her ribs where the tote had hit. She pulled her sweater back down quickly, as if the mirror might judge her. A knock came at the door. Amara's whole body tensed. Yes! Min-jun's voice came through the wood calm, not intruding. I left a first aid kit outside your door. A pause. And a heating pad. For your ribs. Amara swallowed hard. Thank you. Silence. Then his voice again, lower, almost careful. If you want. I can check the bruises. To make sure nothing is broken. Amara's breath caught. She should say no. She should keep distance. But her ribs hurt so badly she couldn't inhale fully. And she was so tired of being alone in pain. Her voice came out small. Okay. The door opened slowly. Min-jun stepped in and stopped, immediately, at a respectful distance, like he was waiting for permission to exist in her space. Amara sat on the edge of the bed, heart hammering. Min-jun's eyes moved over her face, her posture, the tightness around her mouth. His voice was gentle. Lift your shirt. Just enough. Amara flinched instinctively, and Min-jun's gaze sharpened, not with impatience. With understanding. He softened his tone. Only if you want. Amara swallowed. Then, with shaking fingers, she lifted the hem of her sweater just enough to reveal the bruise along her ribs. Min-jun's breath changed. A slight hitch. His hand hovered near her skin, hovered, not touching, like he was asking without words. Amara nodded once. Min-jun's fingertips touched her gently. So gently it almost didn't register as touch. Warm skin against sore pain. Amara hissed, reflexively. Min-jun froze. I'm sorry. It's not you, she whispered. His eyes lifted to hers, dark and intent. It's always him, he said. Not a question. A verdict. Amara's throat tightened. Please don't do anything crazy. Min-jun's jaw flexed. Then, quietly, he said, tell me what you need. Amara blinked. What? His voice was steady. Tell me what you need so I can give it to you. No demand. No expectation. Just offering. Amara stared at him, something raw cracking open in her chest. I need to sleep, she whispered, without jumping at every sound. Min-jun nodded slowly. You will. He stood, set the first aid kit on the nightstand, then did something that made Amara's breath catch. He stepped back toward the door. As if he wasn't going to take anything from this moment. I'll be in the living room, he said. If you wake up afraid, call me. He paused. Then added, voice low and dangerous in its sincerity. And if he comes here, he will die. Amara's eyes stung with tears. Min-jun left. The door shut softly. And for the first time in months. Amara didn't lock her bedroom door because she was afraid of the man outside it. She locked it because she was finally safe enough to choose privacy. Across the city, Marcus Wellington screamed into his phone. Because every one of Amara's calls went dead. Every message bounced back. And when he tried to access her bank account, the one he'd attached himself to like a parasite, he discovered his login no longer worked. 3 days later, Amara couldn't take the silence anymore. Safety was strange. Without chaos, her mind replayed everything. So she did the only thing she knew how to do when she felt out of control. She cooked. Min-jun's penthouse kitchen looked like it belonged in a magazine. Marble counters, sleek appliances, everything hidden behind seamless panels. It was almost insulting. Like the kitchen didn't do real work. Amara found ingredients delivered by staff, fresh vegetables, herbs, expensive cuts of meat. She ignored most of it and made what she knew. Grits. Not fancy. Not reinvented. Just grits the way her grandmother taught her, salted, creamy, patient. She fried chicken too, because sometimes comfort needed to be loud. When Min-jun walked in, he stopped short, eyes narrowing slightly. "What is that smell?" he asked. Amara braced herself. "If you don't like it, I'll—" "It smells," he paused, searching for the word. His voice came out quieter. "Like home." Amara blinked. Min-jun moved closer, gaze focused on the stove, the steam, the careful movements of her hands. "You cook," he said. "I cook when I'm stressed," Amara admitted. Min-jun's eyes flicked to her face. "Then you've been stressed for a long time." Amara huffed out a soft laugh, surprised it came out at all. Min-jun watched that laugh like it mattered. Like it was rare. Amara set a plate down. "You can try it." Min-jun sat at the island counter like he'd never done anything so normal. He took one bite of grits. Chewed. His expression didn't change. Amara's stomach clenched. "It's bad." Min-jun swallowed, eyes lifting to hers. "It's different," he said carefully. Amara nodded. "That's polite speak for bad." Min-jun's mouth twitched again, almost a smile. "It's not bad." He took another bite. Then another. And something in Amara unclenched. Because the most dangerous man in Seoul was eating her food like it mattered. Because he didn't ask her to become smaller to fit into his world. He made space for her world to exist inside his. Min-jun pointed at the hot sauce bottle she'd found in the pantry and placed on the counter. "What is that?" Amara blinked. "Hot sauce." He frowned slightly. "Everything is spicy here already." Amara's eyes narrowed, playful despite herself. "Not like this." Min-jun watched her for a beat, then, without breaking eye contact, poured a careful amount onto his chicken. Amara sucked in a breath. "That's too much." Min-jun took a bite. His face stayed composed for exactly 3 seconds. Then his eyes watered. Amara's laugh burst out, real and startled. Min-jun stared at her, lips pressed together like he was fighting a reaction. Then he exhaled and quietly laughed too. It was low, brief, but it existed. And it did something to Amara's chest that felt dangerously close to hope. That night, Amara woke up at 2:07 a.m. to the sound of her new phone vibrating. One message. From an unknown number. "I know where you are." Amara sat up in bed, heart slamming against her ribs. The room was dark, city light faint through the curtains. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. Another message appeared. "You think some Korean man can hide you from me?" Amara's stomach turned to ice. Her instinct screamed, "Don't wake him. Don't cause trouble. Don't make him angry." But Min-jun wasn't Marcus. She needed to stop treating safety like it was fragile. So she got out of bed, barefoot, the penthouse floor cold under her feet, and walked to the living room. Min-jun was there. Not asleep. Sitting in the dim light with a laptop open, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled, watching something on the security feed. Like he'd been waiting. He looked up immediately when she entered. His eyes sharpened. "What happened?" Amara held out the phone with trembling fingers. Min-jun stood so fast the chair barely made a sound. He read the message. His face went still. The calm kind of still that felt like the moment before lightning hits. He looked at her. "Did you respond?" Amara shook her head. "Good," he said. Then, quieter, "Come here." Amara hesitated. Min-jun's gaze softened slightly. "Please." That word. Please. From him. Amara crossed the room. Min-jun didn't pull her into his body. He didn't trap her. He simply placed his hands on her shoulders, firm, grounding, warm. You're safe, he said. Amara's voice cracked. He found me. Min-jun shook his head once. No. His eyes held hers with absolute certainty. He thinks he found you, Min-jun corrected. That's different. Amara swallowed, fear choking her. What are you going to do? Min-jun's jaw flexed. He didn't lie. I'm going to end this, he said. The words should have scared her. Instead, relief flooded her so fast she almost cried. Because she'd been ending things alone for so long. And alone hadn't been enough. Amara whispered, don't kill him. Min-jun's eyes darkened. Why? Amara's breath shook. Because I don't want. I don't want his violence to live inside my life forever. I don't want to be the reason you. Min-jun's hands tightened slightly on her shoulders, not hurting, just anchoring. You're not the reason, he said, voice low. He is. A pause. Then his voice softened, dangerously honest. I need you to understand something, Amara. She looked up at him, eyes stinging. Min-jun continued, you didn't ask for me. You didn't chase me. You didn't try to use me. His gaze burned into hers. And that, he said quietly, is exactly why I can't stop choosing you. Amara's chest tightened. Why? She whispered. You don't even know me. Min-jun's hands lifted slowly to cup her face. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones with a tenderness that contradicted everything he was rumored to be. I know you're brave, he said. I know you keep going when you shouldn't be able to. I know you carry pain like it's normal because you had to. His eyes flicked to her mouth. The faint cut healed, but the memory remained. And I know, he added, voice dropping, when you look at me, you don't see a bank account. Amara's breath hitched. Min-jun's gaze held hers. I don't want anyone, he said. I want you. The words landed heavy. Not romantic like a song. Romantic like a vow. Amara's voice broke. That's not safe. Min-jun's mouth hovered close to hers, close enough that she could feel his breath, warm and steady. I know, he murmured. Then he stopped. Pulled back. The restraint was almost worse than a kiss. Not yet, he said quietly. Not until you're sure. Amara stared at him, heart racing, body aching with the confusion of wanting and fear in the same breath. Min-jun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His expression shifted. Director Han's voice came through the speaker in Korean, low and urgent. Min-jun listened for 5 seconds. Then he said one word. Bring him. The call ended. Amara's stomach flipped. Bring who? Min-jun looked at her. His voice was calm. Marcus, he said. Amara froze. Here. Min-jun's eyes didn't flinch. No. A pause. Then, colder, to me. Amara thought Marcus was just a man. A cruel man, yes. A violent man, yes. But still, just a man. What she didn't understand yet was that in Min-jun's world, men weren't simply punished. They were dismantled. Piece by piece. And Marcus had just sent a message to the wrong woman. In the wrong city. Under the protection of the wrong man. In 1 hour, everything would change. Min-jun didn't bring Marcus to the penthouse. He brought Amara to a place she didn't know existed. A private elevator. A subterranean garage. A black corridor lit by pale overhead strips that made everyone look like they belonged tonight. Amara walked beside Min-jun, Director Han behind them, 2 other men flanking like silent shadows. Her stomach churned. Where are we going? She asked, voice tight. Min-jun didn't lie. Somewhere you can choose, he said. What does that mean? Min-jun's jaw flexed. It means you can decide how this ends. They entered a room that looked nothing like the penthouse. Concrete walls. A metal table. A single overhead light that buzzed faintly. The air smelled faintly of bleach and cold. Danger. Amara's body reacted immediately, skin prickling, heart racing, trauma screaming. Min-jun turned to her, eyes intense. If you want to leave, you can. Amara's throat tightened. Why would you bring me here? Min-jun's voice went low. Because you've been powerless for too long. A door opened. Marcus was shoved inside by 2 men. His face was bruised fresh this time. His coat gone. His hair messy. his eyes wild with rage and fear. But the moment he saw Amara, his expression snapped into something familiar. Ownership. You, he spat. You did this. You. He stepped forward. And Min-jun moved. He didn't hit Marcus. He simply stepped between them. A wall. A verdict. Marcus's voice rose, desperate now. Amara, what is this? You think you can just run? After everything Amara's hands trembled. Her brain flashed images. Car nights, hospital lights, blood, loneliness. Min-jun spoke without raising his voice. Sit, he said to Marcus. Marcus laughed sharply. Who the hell are you? Min-jun's gaze didn't change. Marcus didn't sit. One of Min-jun's men took a single step forward. Marcus sat immediately. Amara's stomach turned. Power this absolute should terrify her. And it did. But it also made her feel safe, which terrified her more. Min-jun looked at Amara. Tell him, he said softly. Amara's throat tightened. Tell him what? Min-jun's voice stayed calm, but something raw leaked through. The truth, he said. Tell him what he did to you. Amara stared at Marcus. Marcus stared back, jaw clenched, eyes bright with hatred. You're really doing this, he sneered. Playing victim like always? You ruined my life, Amara. You. Amara's voice cracked. You stole from me. Marcus scoffed. I took what I was owed. Amara's breath shook. You emptied my account. I had $17. Marcus rolled his eyes like it was boring. You always had something to say about money. Amara's chest tightened. I was pregnant. Marcus's expression flickered, then hardened into cruelty. You probably did that on purpose, he spat. To trap me. Something inside Amara snapped. Not loudly. Quietly. Cleanly. She stepped forward. Min-jun's hand lifted slightly as if to stop her, then dropped, letting her choose. Amara's voice shook, but she spoke anyway. I lost the baby. The room went silent. Even Marcus paused. Amara continued, tears burning. I bled in a hospital alone. I went home to my car. And you. Her voice broke. You texted me not to be dramatic, she whispered. You told me I'd be fine. Marcus's mouth twisted. That's life. People lose things. Amara's body trembled with rage. Min-jun's voice came low, dangerous. Apologize. Marcus barked out a laugh. To her? For what? She's weak. She always has been. That's why she needed me. Amara flinched because part of her had feared that was true. Then Min-jun did something that changed everything. He didn't attack Marcus. He looked at Amara and asked quietly, Do you want me to destroy him? The words hit like a gunshot. Amara stared at Min-jun. Because that question wasn't about Marcus. It was about Min-jun. About what he was capable of. About what it meant to accept love from a man who could erase people. Amara whispered, Is that who you are? Min-jun's eyes held hers. And in that moment, finally, he told her the truth. Yes, he said. A pause. Then, I am worse than what you've heard. Amara's stomach dropped. Min-jun continued, voice steady, not pleading, not manipulating. But with you, he said quietly, I am trying to be better. Amara's throat tightened. You should have told me, she whispered. Min-jun's jaw flexed. I wanted to. Then why didn't you? Her voice rose, cracking. Why did you let me sleep in your home, eat your food, feel safe, when your world is this? Min-jun stepped closer, eyes dark. Because you needed safety first. Amara shook her head, tears spilling now. No. You needed control first. Silence. Min-jun's face hardened, then cracked, just slightly. His voice went low. Yes. The admission hit her like a slap. He continued, raw now. I needed to know you were within reach. I needed to know he couldn't take you from me. I needed. He stopped himself, breathing hard through his nose, restraint shaking. Amara whispered, devastated, You're just another man deciding what happens to me. Min-jun flinched like she'd struck him. And then, quietly, he said the most dangerous thing he could have said. I don't want to be, he whispered. Amara's chest tightened. She backed away, shaking. I need space. Min-jun didn't move to stop her. He didn't grab her. He didn't command. He simply nodded once, jaw clenched like it cost him blood. "Done," he said hoarsely. "If you want to leave, you can." A beat. Then his voice dropped into something almost broken. "But I will spend every moment until then making sure you never want to." Amara turned and walked out. Her legs felt numb. Her heart felt like it was splitting. Behind her, Marcus laughed, triumphant, ugly. "You see," he called after her. "He's using you. You're just a toy." Min-jun's voice cut through the air, quiet as death. "Remove his tongue," he said. Amara froze mid-step. Horror rushed through her. She spun back. "No." Min-jun's eyes locked on hers. A pause, one heartbeat where she realized she had power here. Not because she was weak. Because he cared. Amara's voice shook. "Don't do that. Please." Min-jun's jaw flexed, fury vibrating beneath his skin. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Fine," he said, voice arctic. Not his tongue. He looked at Marcus like he was deciding the most efficient way to end a problem without staining Amara's soul. Then he said, quietly, "Take him away." Marcus's face drained of color. "What? No, Min-jun, wait. Amara, Amara." The door shut. The sound echoed like a coffin closing. Amara stood in the corridor, shaking. Because she'd just stopped a monster from doing something monstrous. And the most terrifying part was, she wasn't sure she wanted to stop him next time. If you're locked into this story right now, hit that like button and subscribe to Revenge Cafe, because what's coming next is the part where safety turns into devotion, and devotion turns into war. And comment below, should Amara forgive Min-jun for hiding his world, or make him bleed for her trust? Amara tried to leave. She tried. For 2 days, she stayed in a guest suite at a discreet hotel Min-jun arranged under the condition that she could lock the door, that no one would enter without permission, that she could request to be moved anywhere in the city at any time. Choice. Always choice. Yet even with choice, the fear followed her like a shadow. Every elevator ding made her flinch. Every unknown number made her stomach turn. And the worst part? She missed Min-jun's presence the way you miss a warm coat in winter. Not because she needed him to survive. Because her body had learned what safety felt like near him, and it didn't want to forget. On the 3rd day, Amara convinced herself she could do something normal. She went to the Gangnam Luxury Mall, midday, crowded, bright. Normal people. Normal noise. She told herself Marcus couldn't reach her here. She told herself she was reclaiming her life. She wore a simple black coat, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Still practical. Still safe. But she'd added one thing. A red scarf. A slash of color at her throat like a quiet act of rebellion. She had just stepped out of a boutique, bags in hand, when she heard a laugh that turned her blood to ice. Marcus. Amara froze. He stood near the central atrium like he belonged there again, camel coat, polished shoes, smug face. Except his eyes looked different. Sharper. Meaner. Like someone who'd been humiliated and decided to make it someone else's fault. He saw her and smiled wide, predatory. "There you are," he said, loud enough for people to hear. "My disappearing girlfriend." Amara's hands trembled. The bags nearly slipped. 3 years of suffering compressed into one heartbeat. Marcus stepped closer. "You thought you could run off with some Korean sugar daddy and hide?" Amara's throat tightened. "Leave me alone." Marcus laughed. "Oh, now you have a voice?" He leaned in, voice dripping contempt. "You were always so needy. So pathetic. You ruined everything." Amara's ribs ached as if remembering. Her palms went sweaty. She wanted to walk away. But her feet were rooted to the marble. Because she wasn't just seeing Marcus. She was seeing the girl who had $17 and nowhere to go. She was seeing blood in a hospital bathroom. She was seeing her baby's future vanish. And Marcus was standing here like he hadn't done anything. Marcus's gaze flicked to her bags. "Look at you. Playing rich." Then he smirked. "How much is he paying those guys to pretend you matter?" Amara's heart pounded. Because she could feel it now. The time bomb. The countdown. Min-jun's promise. And somewhere deep inside, another truth. Min-jun wasn't going to let this happen again. Not in public. Not in private. Not ever. Amara's phone buzzed in her coat pocket. One vibration. A text notification. From Director Han. Motorcade arriving in 8 minutes. Stay where you are. Amara's breath caught. 8 minutes. Marcus only needed 5. Marcus stepped closer, invading her space like he owned it. You know what's funny? He said, voice rising. You always thought you were so strong. But look at you. Still running to men for help. Amara's voice shook. I'm not running to anyone. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Liar. He reached out fast and grabbed her arm. Right where the bruises had been. Amara's body jerked involuntarily. Pain flashed. Fear flashed. Then anger. Amara yanked her arm back. Don't touch me. Marcus's face twisted. Don't talk to me like that. He shoved her. Hard. Amara stumbled backward into a display stand. Metal edge. Sharp. Her elbow slammed into it. Pain exploded. She cried out as she fell. Shopping bags flew. Merchandise scattered. Her elbow split open against the metal, blood immediately slicking down her forearm. For a moment, the mall went silent. Marcus stood over her, breathing hard, eyes bright with cruel satisfaction. Stay down where you belong, he snarled. You worthless. The sound of synchronized footsteps cut through the silence. Heavy. Precise. Not mall security. Something else. Amara's blood ran cold. Marcus's head turned, confused. And then, the crowd parted. 6 men in black suits moved in like a wall. Not rushing. Owning space. Mall security stood up straight the moment they appeared, faces blanching as recognition hit. Then Kang Min-jun walked in. Min-jun had come straight from somewhere important. He still wore his suit. But there was nothing civilized about him now. His expression was carved from stone, eyes black with fury. He didn't look at Marcus first. He looked at Amara. On the floor. Bleeding. Her coat askew. Her red scarf twisted like a torn ribbon. Min-jun crossed the distance in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside her like the marble wasn't cold, like the crowd didn't exist, like the only real thing in the world was her pain. His hands, those hands that controlled boardrooms and underground empires, hovered over her elbow, trembling. Let me see, he said, voice low. Amara swallowed hard, tears burning. It's just a scratch. Min-jun's gaze snapped to her face. Nothing about you bleeding is just anything, he said, broken syntax, emotion overriding control. He gently lifted her arm, examining the cut, the swelling, the shaking in her fingers. Then he looked down at the blood on his own hand. And something inside him shifted. Amara felt it. Like the air tightening. Like a door closing. Min-jun leaned in close enough that only she could hear. I told you, he whispered. He would not touch you again. Then Min-jun stood. Slowly. And turned. The tenderness vanished. Not replaced by rage. Replaced by something colder. More final. He faced Marcus. Who, Min-jun asked softly, is he to you? Marcus swallowed, trying to recover bravado. I'm her boyfriend. Min-jun's eyes narrowed. Were. Marcus scoffed, glancing around. What is this? Your boss? You think you own her. Min-jun's voice stayed calm. I don't own her, he said. Then, quieter, deadly, but you harmed her. He tilted his head slightly. Point at him, Min-jun said to Amara, without taking his eyes off Marcus. Amara's breath caught. Her body trembled. But she lifted her bleeding arm and pointed. At Marcus. Min-jun nodded once. As if confirming a target. Min-jun moved before Marcus could process what was happening. 1 second Marcus was standing. The next, Min-jun's hand was around his throat. One-handed. Lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing. Marcus's feet kicked helplessly. His face turned red, eyes bulging as he clawed at Min-jun's grip. The crowd gasped. Phones came out, trembling hands filming. Min-jun slammed Marcus back against a marble column hard enough to crack the surface. The sound echoed. Min-jun didn't shout. He didn't perform. He spoke loud enough for everyone to hear, voice like ice. My name is Kang Min-jun, he said. Chairman of Kang Global. A pause. Then the real reveal, quiet, devastating. And the woman you put your hands on is mine to protect. Marcus choked, eyes wild. Min-jun leaned closer, voice dropping into something intimate and lethal. Do you understand what that means? Marcus wheezed. I didn't. Min-jun's grip tightened. Let me explain, Min-jun said, calm. I own this city in ways you can't comprehend. He glanced toward Director Han. Director Han stepped forward and handed Min-jun a phone. Min-jun didn't look away from Marcus as he spoke into it. Freeze his accounts, he said softly. A beat. Now. He ended the call. Marcus's eyes widened in panic even as he struggled for air. Min-jun continued, voice still even, each word a nail. By tomorrow morning, he said, your employer will receive evidence of your financial abuse. He tilted his head slightly. By noon, he continued, your immigration status in this country will be reviewed. Marcus's eyes widened further, terror creeping in. Min-jun's mouth barely moved as he delivered the most satisfying part, slow, precise, irreversible. By evening, your fiancée, yes, I know about her, will have a full file of the other women you hurt. A pause. Within a week, you will be unemployable in Seoul. Min-jun's eyes narrowed, voice dropping. Within a month, you will be broke. He released Marcus, just enough for him to collapse, coughing to the floor. Min-jun stepped back like Marcus was dirt on expensive shoes. Then Min-jun turned his head toward Amara, voice shifting instantly, tenderness returning like a blade sheathed. Do you want the money back? He asked softly. Amara's breath caught. Because he wasn't asking if he could. He was asking what she wanted. Her voice shook. Yes. Min-jun nodded. He looked at Director Han. Return every cent he took. With interest. Director Han inclined his head. Yes, Chairman. Min-jun looked back down at Marcus. And you, Min-jun said, quiet as winter, will issue a public apology. Marcus coughed, voice hoarse. You can't, this is illegal. Min-jun leaned down slightly, eyes black. You're right, he murmured. I can't do illegal things. Then his gaze flicked to the crowd filming. And I won't, he said louder. A pause. Then softly again, for Marcus alone. I'll do something worse. Marcus stared up at him, trembling. Min-jun continued, I will make the world see you exactly as you are. He straightened. To people like you, Min-jun said, voice controlled, death is easy. He looked toward Amara again, voice softening. But she deserves to watch you live with what you did. Amara's throat tightened. Not because she felt sorry for Marcus. Because she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Vindication. Min-jun turned to Amara, eyes intense. Is it too much? He asked her quietly. Do you want me to stop? The mall held its breath. Amara stared at Marcus on the floor, coughing, humiliated, exposed. 3 years ago, she would have begged for peace. She would have apologized to keep the violence from escalating. She would have tried to make herself smaller so a man could feel bigger. But she wasn't that woman anymore. Not because Min-jun made her powerful. Because she had always been powerful. She'd survived. She'd rebuilt. She'd crossed an ocean. She looked at Min-jun and answered softly. No. Min-jun's eyes darkened. Not with cruelty. With devotion. Amara pushed herself up off the marble floor, wincing at her ribs, blood still running down her arm. One of the bodyguards stepped forward with a handkerchief. Amara took it and wrapped it around her elbow herself. No one did it for her. She faced Marcus. Her voice shook, but it carried. You thought I'd always be that broken girl, she said. The one begging you not to leave. Marcus coughed, trying to sneer. You're nothing without. Amara cut him off, voice firmer now. I survived you, she said. I thrived without you. She stepped closer, not afraid. And now, Amara continued, I'm someone you will never touch again. She glanced briefly at Min-jun, then back to Marcus. Not because he's protecting me, though he is. Her chin lifted. But because I'm worth protecting. Her voice sharpened. I always was. She paused, letting the silence do its work. You were just too small to see it. Then she turned away. Not dramatic. Not shaking. Finished. Min-jun moved to her immediately, his hand settling at her lower back, supportive, not possessive. My love, he murmured, so low only she heard. Amara's breath hitched at the endearment. Min-jun didn't ask permission this time for one thing. He lifted her gently, bridal carry, careful of her ribs, careful of her dignity. The crowd parted automatically. Phones kept filming. But Amara didn't care. Because for the first time, the story being told about her wasn't victim. It was survivor. It was chosen. It was untouchable. As they moved away, Marcus's voice cracked behind them, finally afraid. Amara. Please wait, please. Amara didn't turn. Min-jun's voice floated back, cold. Do not speak her name again. The penthouse was warmer than the mall. Soft light. Silence. The scent of cedar and sandalwood wrapping around Amara like a promise. Min-jun sat on the edge of the bathtub while Amara perched on a towel-covered bench, her elbow cleaned, bandaged, and elevated. He worked with careful hands, steady, precise, gentle enough that it made her throat burn. Amara stared at his fingers as they taped gauze into place. These hands could hurt people. These hands could end lives. Yet they touched her like she was fragile in the best way, not weak, but precious. Min-jun finished and looked up. His eyes were dark, tired, and something else. Relief. You're shaking, he said. Amara tried to laugh it off. Adrenaline. Min-jun's hand hovered near her cheek. Look at me. Amara met his gaze. Min-jun's voice dropped. I'm sorry. Amara blinked. For what? For bringing you near my world, he said. For not telling you sooner. For letting you feel safe before you understood the cost. Amara's throat tightened. She whispered, trauma doesn't care about logic. Min-jun's eyes softened. No. A pause. Then he said, quietly, you have nothing to apologize for. Amara's eyes stung. I kept it from you. Min-jun leaned in, forehead almost touching hers. Pain doesn't have an expiration date, he murmured. You don't owe anyone a timeline. Then his arms went around her, slow, careful, giving her time to pull away. Amara didn't. She leaned in. Not because she was trapped. Because she chose warmth. Min-jun held her like he'd been holding his breath for years. I've got you, he whispered into her hair. I'll always have you. And for the first time, Amara believed him, not because she trusted men, but because she trusted evidence. Min-jun had been offered control. And he had given her choice instead. 2 weeks later, Amara woke up to a notification from her bank. She stared at the screen in disbelief. $127,000 deposited. Not just the money Marcus had stolen over time, every loan, every transfer, every quiet theft. But interest. And compensation. Her hands trembled as she sat up in bed, morning light spilling over the white sheets. She remembered $17.42. She remembered counting quarters for gas. She remembered pretending hunger was normal. Now, her phone buzzed again. A news alert. Not a big headline, but a quiet scandal in business circles. A Western consultant with multiple allegations of financial abuse and coercive control had been terminated from his contracts. A fiancé had called off her engagement publicly. A statement released, I was unaware of his history. I believe women. Amara's stomach turned, not with guilt. With closure. That afternoon, Min-jun found her at the kitchen island, staring at the bank notification again like it might vanish. He set a cup of tea near her hand. Amara looked up. He gave it back. Min-jun's gaze stayed on her face. I took it back, he corrected gently. Amara exhaled, a shaky sound. I don't know what to do with it. Min-jun leaned against the counter across from her, posture relaxed in a way he rarely allowed. Tell me what you want, he said. Amara stared down at her hands. Then she spoke, slowly, like she was building a dream out loud. I want to start something, she said. For women like me. Women who get financially trapped. Women who can't leave because they don't have money, or housing, or help. Min-jun's gaze sharpened, respect. A foundation, Amara continued. Housing. Job support. Therapy. Childcare. Everything I didn't have. Min-jun nodded once, decisive. Done. Amara blinked. Just like that. Min-jun's eyes held hers. Not just like that, he said. You'll run it. You'll decide. I'll fund what you ask me to fund. A pause. Then, softer, I'll match whatever you put in. Amara's eyes stung. She whispered, I want to call it second chances. Min-jun's mouth softened. Perfect. Because in his world, power wasn't just violence. It could be infrastructure. It could be safety built into brick and policy and resources. It could be a woman never having to sleep in her car again. 1 year later, Amara stood in a garden in Itaewon beneath soft lantern light. Her dress was custom, modern silhouette with subtle Korean-inspired detailing at the collar and sleeves, fabric that moved like water when she breathed. Her red scarf, faded from the mall, was tied around her bouquet as a quiet reminder of who she used to be. Guests filled the chairs, sleek men in expensive suits with eyes that measured danger, sitting beside women from Amara's past life, friends who'd hugged her in Baltimore, who'd sent her $20 when they could, who'd never asked why she disappeared for a while. Cultural fusion in one frame. Amara's heart pounded. Not from fear. From disbelief. Kang Min-jun stood at the front, expression controlled, but his hands betrayed him. They trembled slightly. Because the man who could command armies couldn't command his own emotion when he looked at her. When Amara reached him, Min-jun's eyes softened fully, no mask. He took her hands carefully, like he was holding something sacred. Their vows weren't poetic. They were honest. Amara's voice shook as she spoke. I take you, she said, in the darkness and in the light. In the world you were born into and the world you're trying to build. She swallowed hard. I take all of you, she whispered. But I also take myself. My boundaries. My voice. My choice. Min-jun's eyes glistened. His voice came out low. I take you, he said, as you are. Not to change you. Not to own you. A pause. Then the raw truth. You are worth protecting, Amara, he said. You are worth everything. And when he kissed her, it wasn't hungry. It was reverent. Like devotion made physical. That night, in the bedroom they now shared as husband and wife, the city lights glittered beyond the windows like a softer version of the world. Amara sat on the edge of the bed, barefoot, wearing one of Min-jun's shirts, too big, too warm, smelling like cedar and safety. Min-jun stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her like he still couldn't believe she was real. Amara looked up and said softly, I just realized something. Min-jun's brows lifted. What? A year ago, she said, I was hiding bruises from you. Min-jun's jaw tightened. Amara held up a hand, stopping the darkness before it could bloom. And now, she looked around the room. At the quiet. At the warmth. At the life she'd built with her own hands and his protection. Now I don't hide, she finished. Not from you. Not from myself. Min-jun crossed the room and sat beside her, careful as always. His hand found hers. I failed you once, he murmured. By not telling you the truth. Amara squeezed his fingers. Then don't fail me again. Min-jun's eyes held hers. I won't. A pause. Then, softer, tell me if you ever feel afraid. Amara exhaled and let herself lean into him. I'm not afraid of you, she whispered. Min-jun's voice dropped. What are you afraid of? Amara's lips trembled. That I'll get used to being loved. That I'll forget what it cost to get here. Min-jun's arms tightened around her. Then we remember, he said. And we build. 3 months after the wedding, an email arrived from an unknown address. Amara sat at her office in the Second Chances Foundation building, modern, welcoming, warm lighting, a childcare wing filled with soft laughter, staring at the subject line. I'm sorry. Please read. Marcus. Her stomach didn't twist like it used to. No fear. No rage. Just distance. She opened it. It was long. It was pathetic. Apologies wrapped in excuses. Regret that sounded like self-preservation. Amara read it once, feeling nothing but clarity. Then she deleted it. She set the phone down and looked out through her office window at Itaewon below, women walking into the foundation with tentative hope, leaving with resources and plans and the first real breath of safety. Min-jun stepped into her office quietly. Bad news? He asked. Amara shook her head. Old news, she said. Min-jun's gaze softened. Good. Amara stood, walked to him, and rested her forehead against his chest for one quiet moment. That chapter is closed, she whispered. Min-jun's arms wrapped around her. Good, he said. Because everything I need is right here. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you for being here with me through the bruises, the fear, the revenge, and the healing. Please don't forget to like this video if Amara and Min-jun's journey hit you in the chest, and subscribe to Revenge Cafe for more Afro-Korean dark romance stories with justice, devotion, and power that protects instead of controls. And comment below, what was your favorite moment? Min-jun's entrance, Amara's final words to Marcus, or the foundation reveal? And should we do a part 2 where Min-jun's criminal enemies come for Amara, only to learn she's not the same woman anymore? Until next time, keep believing in second chances, the power of love to heal real wounds, and the truth that you are always worth protecting.